At half of the press. Well, my people, me here for drop the real news, news, reviews, everything in a one right this or right there, my people. So all I want to know to do is like up the video, share out the video, subscribe to my channel, my people. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. Let's get right into it.
A corrupt government cannot liberate the people. If the head of the stream is corrupt, the entire river will be also.
A blessed good day to you, my wisdom warriors. Wagwan, wagwan. I hope you guys are in good spirit. Well, Andre Stevens is actually interviewing Mark Golden. So I want to hear the breakdown of the NHT. I want to listen to what Mark Golden have to say keenly, my people. And to tell me in the comment section what you think. Hear this.
Taste in people's mouth.
That's correct. Took us a year to build back the confidence in the IMF. And in fact, it was the Congressional Black Caucus who really made the difference, because they went to see Miss Christine Lagarde, who was the then managing director of the IMF. I think it was on Christmas Eve in Washington to advocate for Jamaica. And they did persuade her, and the fund decided to give Jamaica another chance. So at that time, when they came hard. You know, so we had to run big budget surpluses to start to pay down the debt. And in order to achieve those budget surpluses, we did a survey, and we engaged professional independent experts, and they said, you can take $11.4 billion for 4 years out of the NHT and not compromise its operations. Yeah. And so we passed an amendment to the NHT Act that specifically allowed that for 4 years. At the time, the then opposition, the JLP, lick out hard against it. An affiliate of theirs took the matter to court. They lost that case. The court said it was lawful what was being done, but it was never intended to do it for more than 4 years. When they came
about the leader of the opposition, Andrew Holness, then.
Yes.
Speaking.
Yes.
I want to remind Jamaica tonight what he said about the NHT. Producer, there is a clip with him and Dion Jackson Miller. I want you to find that clip because I think it is very timely. Find that
in principle, you believe that NHT funds should be ring-fenced to be used for NHT contributors.
It should be ring-fenced to use for the objects and purposes of the legislation. Yes.
So let's just say the court ruling goes either way. Let's say there is a court ruling that says no, actually, the government can use it for whatever it wants. You have your belief in principle. Does that mean that as Prime Minister, you would then follow through on those principles?
Yes, my
either
principles
amend the law if necessary, and ensure, in fact, that the dipping into the piggy bank doesn't occur?
And I tell you why.
That's a commitment?
It stands as a commitment. And I tell you why. There is a point of view that all public funds should be pooled, whether they are in trusts or that, having the public sector funds fragmented in this way doesn't help the central government. But then there is also another view that there are some funds that belong to account holders, funds like pension, funds like the NHT, and those funds ought to be totally excluded because technically they are the private property of contributors.
Yeah.
That was Holness in opposition, like you in opposition now.
Yeah.
So we know you're not going to change on the country like how Andrew Holness has changed on us.
Okay. So let me tell you what happened. So when the JLP came to power in March 2016, after the February election, not long thereafter, having said all that and what they had said in Parliament saying that what we were doing was wrong and so on, they proceeded to amend the NHT Act again. The 4 years had come to an end, and extend that. And they've actually extended it for 8 more years since the original 4 years. So the 11.4 billion, instead of just being taken over 4 years, which would have been, 45 billion, what thereabouts, it has been taken for 12 years now.
Wow.
Now that period expires, I believe, in March 2026. This is the last fiscal year ahead of us, where the law allows it to be taken.
Yes.
And our view is it should not be extended any further, because it was never intended that that should be a permanent arrangement. Jamaica didn't rely on those funds prior to the very difficult situation the country was in 2013. And we need to wean ourselves off of using the funds resources to fund the national budget. And we believe that is more than possible, and it could have been done already, but they chose not to do it.
So I'm going to ask you again, Mark Jefferson Golding. Should you take the realm of Prime Minister and you go into the scoffers and you see that there's nothing in there, because already we are seeing signs that the cookie jar is empty, how then are you going to proceed to stop using the NHT 11 billion to finance this pretty fancy budget that we have being presented by you?
The budget that is currently being approved for the coming fiscal year, which begins on April 1, that budget contemplates another 11.4 billion being taken from the NHT. That's the budget that the government has presented. All right.
Yes.
As I've said, my recollection is that this is the last year that the act which they passed allows it to be taken. Okay. Going forward, we will not be relying on those resources. For example, every year as the economy expands, albeit slowly, the tax base of the country, the resources, the revenue of the country expands as well. So, for example, in the coming fiscal year, they're projecting, I think it's over 50 billion more in tax revenue than they collected this year. That's now ending. So it's really a question of why then, if your tax revenue is increasing year and year and year, and they talk about no new taxes, but the tax revenues grow because the tax system has improved under our watch. A lot of things were done to make the tax system more efficient at collection and so on. And that has borne tremendous fruit. So Jamaica has seen its revenues grow significantly over the last 8 years. Yet they've continued to take this 11.4 billion every year. There have been some years in the period where they've actually exceeded their revenue target by close to $100 billion. Yeah, but they're still, now, to my mind, this can't go on because it's affecting the NHT's operations. The NHT no longer funds its loans itself, other than the loans to the lowest band of income earners, 30,000 and below. But borrowers above that have to go to the private institutions and pay those fees and those mortgage insurance requirements and so on. And the NHT has to pay an interest rate subsidy to the private lenders, because the private lenders are not going to lend at the NHT's rates. But the NHT wants the borrowers to get their rates. So they have to pay a subsidy, which is a big expense for the NHT. So we're saying,
Prime Minister, Mr. Golding, you're basically saying that 11 billion is going back into the NHT to do what it is primarily caused and trusted to do.
Correct. It will be left there. We will not be taking it out any longer. And in fact, what we have said is we plan to recapitalize the NHT by providing it with lands that the government to replace some of those resources that were taken out over the time, that it can then use to develop affordable housing. And we will, in the pricing of affordable housing, not include the land cost or the value of the land to the purchaser of those units. So they will get that value without having to pay for it, given that they have been contributors to the fund, but these resources were taken out of the fund. So this is an idea that we have as to how to reduce house prices at the affordable housing level that we're trying to bring to the people.
Reduce house prices at the affordable level.
Yes.
But one thing that really sparked me yesterday is when you said you're developing a fund that can assist young professionals like myself, teachers, nurses, soldiers, doctors, everyone out there, so that they can go to the NHT to get what you call it, Mr. Golding? Can you tell us that idea? Because I've never heard any leader come with this idea.
Yes. Well, we have a plan in relation to housing, which I think is transformational and very, very necessary.
Yes.
Because what we have found is that there is a tremendous challenge to young people to find the deposit, which out of their own resources, to buy a house. So what we have said is, look, the NHT can, out of its own resources, this is not going to cost the government any money. The NHT can, out of its own resources, provide a fund. And we've said initially we'd start that fund with $1 billion, $1 billion, which would allow purchasers who are up to 35 years old, who have been contributors to the fund for at least 2 years, they would be eligible to take advantage of the Young Owners Deposit Fund, we call it. The Young Owners Deposit Fund, yes. And they could get a grant of up to $500,000 to help them with their deposit. And then they could finance the rest with a mortgage. Now, this is just in particular for where they're using the NHT to buy into other schemes. Because on NHT schemes, my understanding is that they don't need that deposit at all if the NHT is the developer. But for other developers, like the other big housing developers that there are out there, if they're using NHT funding for that, they still have to find the deposit. And this Young Owners Deposit Scheme Fund will help them to finance that deposit through a grant. And so we think that there's a very significant benefit.
PNP administration as you as Prime Minister, a grant, according to a Prime Minister in Barbados, a grant is free money. So you're saying that you plan to help the young professionals in this country, not just owning a house, but giving them the first grant to deposit to getting their house.
Yes, because the deposit typically, I believe, is in the range of 10% of the price of the house. It may vary, but that's been a traditional deposit amount in Jamaica. And we want to say 500,000 will be provided for the young contributors who are buying their first home typically, and they're struggling to find that deposit. This grant scheme will help them to achieve it.
And your argument is if you stop taking the 11 billion out of the NHT annually, the NHT will have enough resources to support these initiatives.
Yes, that's right. And that is what the NHT was established to do. The NHT was established under the governance of when Michael Manley was Prime Minister in the 70s. He established the National Housing Trust as a vehicle to enable workers of the country who contribute to the fund to get housing. So when you deplete the housing trust of resources over such a long period, you're compromising its ability to do the things that it was set up to do. And those things are very, very needed because there's a tremendous shortage of housing in the country, especially affordable housing, for people who are just want to get their toehold into ownership. They can acquire a relatively modest house initially and they can expand on it and build their castle, So we want to really try and tackle that through a variety of ideas that I put on the table yesterday.
I really appreciate this discussion. I'm asking Jamaica to like up this live because we have a good amount of time with Mr. Golding. But let us continue tonight, Mr. Golding.
So my wisdom warriors, wanna say Andrew Holness, I want wicked Prime Minister. What Andrew Holness do with so much money? Seriously, Andrew Holness done collect how much money from revenues already and he's still a trouble the NHT. After him say, remember him promise, him promise saying and touch it. What is this man doing with so much of taxpayer money and people there need help? People there need help. Say, between me and Ono, I'm glad Mark Golding come on Andre Stephen platform. Me glad my wisdom warriors. Yeah man, he just come and come give we a breakdown. But if you don't want to watch the full video, all you have to do I run go over there now. My wisdom warriors, wanna tell me what you think, wanna tell me how you feel about this. Put on an honest opinion in the comment section. Like up the video, share it out, and subscribe to my channel. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. Big up on the nice clean self. One love.